after you decide what type of need you have, you've worked with your team and you have an idea of the product that you all want and what's really going to help you to address the problem or challenge that you have, the next step is my favorite step, and that is the shopping, okay? The shopping, how you actually go about purchasing your technology is critical, again, because these are oftentimes big ticket items or, large investments, okay? You're going to want to be thoughtful about how you go about making your selection for your purchase, especially if there is a contract involved. So I've broken down the steps to shopping for technology for your business or team into 4 different parts. First, you're going to have your discovery. And then part number 2 is going to be your evaluation and your assessment period, which is then going to bring you to your final vendor or product selection. But before you sign off on anything, you are going to have a 4th step. And I think this is really important, again, because technology purchases tend to be larger purchases. You're also going to have your review stage. So discovery, step 1. Outline exactly what your business challenges are here. And remember not to solve for problems that don't exist. Once you're clear on what you want to address, do some research and see how your competitors are handling similar problems. Who are the vendors that they're using? What are all the different types of products and solutions that are available? Get to Googling. Step 2 is going to be your evaluation or your assessment period. Compare and contrast the products or the vendors that you encountered during your research process. And then really take care to take all of your requirements as well as your resources, both people and money resources, into consideration. And this is going to be an important consideration when you're really measuring each product or solution up against one another. Step 3 is going to be selecting the right products or vendor for your team or organization. Remember that this is not a popularity contest, and you should be comfortable with your final decision, as this is likely going to be an entity that you all are going to be partnered with for an extended period of time. They're going to have access to your sensitive data and information, possibly even your physical space or equipment, and then even some of your business strategy. They're going to be all up in your stuff. So make sure that you really like and that you're really comfortable with and that you really trust the vendor and their digital products that they're going to leave behind. Lastly, step 4 is going to be reviewing your contract. I would also say always ask for some sort of a discount and see if they have any sort of flexible payment plan options. You might not need them now, but they might come in handy down the line. So it might be really, really useful to sort of set something up now that you can absolutely meet with no problem, just in case there might be some sort of cash flow issues that you can anticipate later on down the year. I would also say if your contract is over 2 pages and you're not comfortable with any of the language and you're having difficulty understanding some of the paragraphs, take this opportunity to forward your contract or your agreement over to a legal entity, whether in-house or out of house. Tons of attorneys offer review services, so please take advantage of this if you don't feel comfortable reading or understanding what is in that contract or agreement. This is so critical. Do not get bitten later. In my previous life as an IT manager, our evaluation periods would often take up several weeks, if not months. They would typically involve the creation of a really comprehensive scorecard or a rubric. These would be created in Excel or sometimes even a Word document, or if we happen to have a dedicated space or a war room, it would just live on a whiteboard or a bunch of Post-its. But anyway, this scorecard was a tool that we used to really track all the criteria that we wanted to see in our products or our vendors, and gave us a really clear and easy and organized way to look at all this information and then measure and compare and contrast. The scorecards would cover functional requirements, so how things should work just from a really high level or user perspective. And then they would also cover technical requirements. If you do need assistance with really determining what your technical requirements are, I would absolutely recommend working with a trusted advisor, whether this be a consultant or someone else that you feel comfortable bringing onto the team to help you evaluate that component. The reason why this is important is just to make sure that you have someone competent on your side, not the vendor side, but your side, who really understands what your needs are from a technical perspective, and someone who can make sure that you all are looking at the appropriate tools and solutions and that you're not going to get oversold or undersold. Remember, the goal in implementing a new technology solution or making a large investment in technology is really to enable your team or business to become faster, to become more productive, to enable them to make more informed decisions, and at the end of the day, to improve overall performance. Some other components that we typically included on our scorecard also included support and services. So, what did customer service or customer support look like? Was there going to be 24/7 availability? Do we need to submit tickets? Is it an email? Do we have an assigned account representative or an account manager that is going to help us with any sort of issues that we do have? Are we going to need to make an appointment? Are there a limited number of support hours per month? Is there training available, or is there a video library that's going to be available to myself and my end users if we want to learn how to make changes or administer something or create something ourselves? Essentially, is what they're offering in support sufficient for the level of competency that you have in-house to use this product? Another important item to include on your scorecard is vendor health and credibility. Who are these people that you're about to be working with? Again, who are these people that you're about to be letting into your doors and giving access to your information and your employees and your customers? How long has this company been in business? Do they have references? Lots of vendors, especially contractors and consultants, do come with references. Don't be afraid to ask. Is their website even legitimate? Then, of course, there's pricing. Is it competitive? What are other vendors that offer similar services charging? Is the pricing sustainable? Can you afford it month to month? Can you? Don't lie. Be for real. And even if you can afford it, is the cost justifiable? Think about it for a second. What will stop or be delayed in your business or operations if you don't move forward with this purchase? You might, in fact, have a more lean operating model where going without the tool might be worth considering. Next up, you've got contract terms. The biggest consideration I think to look out for around contract terms are these companies going to own any of your data at the end of signing this agreement? Will you be able to get a copy of your data out of this tool or system? Will you be able to get copies of any sorts of documentation or requirements or spec documents that were created for your implementation? My recommendation here would be think about everything that you want to be able to walk away with if, for whatever reason, this engagement with you and this vendor or you and this service does come to a close. And then think about how fast you want that process to happen. Do you want to be stuck with them for 6 weeks, 3 months trying to wrap things up? Or do you want to be able to wrap things up with a week or 2 weeks notice if either of you writes a letter and just, have a clean cut? Think about all of these things. Really think about how you want your exit to go, kind of similar to a prenup. And then make sure you just negotiate those deals into the contract or the agreement before you sign. Again, don't put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. And don't sign something that you aren't going to be able to stand by. The process for shopping for new technology can be really difficult, and it's super important to just accept that, especially the more complex the product that you're shopping for or the more complex or comprehensive your needs are. Also, accept that change is hard. and that you will likely be on an internal marketing campaign from the day that you decide to implement this new change until months after everything has gone live and you and your team have been using it. Really, you're going to be selling this product until every single user has been fully acclimated and no longer has any questions or anything to complain about, which is basically going to be until you make your next change. And then you're going to have to do it all over again. It's the same song and dance, and honestly, I kind of love it. It's like the jingle of being a change agent, and lots of people are going to hate you, but whatever. Some common challenges that you may run into, especially as a noob implementing a technology solution, I think are first going to be communication, 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 communication. Make sure that you over communicate. Well, no, let me take that back. Have a communication plan. Consider every audience from the admin to the executive to the creative to the operations team to the customer support team. Also, the customer. What do they need to know and when? How can you leverage communication in order to avoid any confusion or disruption of any kind, especially when it's customer facing? You may also encounter the problem of too many chefs in the kitchen. So think about who you really need to work with and who you really need to expend your energy on during this process. Oftentimes, there are going to be differences between how you speak to those who are sponsoring and paying for the project and those who are actually going to be end users of this tool. You'll also want to spend a different level of energy talking to those who are really going to be, I think, champions, decision makers, and influencers as far as this implementation project is concerned versus those who are going to be outliers and naysayers. And that's not to say to ignore those folks who might feel like they're on the outside or who may feel like they have a more negative perspective on what's going on, because they probably do have some valid points. They're probably the person that's been working, longer than anyone else and really knows the ins and outs and has a really detailed understanding of some of the oldest and most common challenges like across the business. So don't ignore that person. My advice is just to say, don't let that person or that type of energy hold you up or delay anything, because there will always be a reason not to move forward with the change, just the same way that there will always be 101 reasons to move forward with a change. Stay focused on what your end goal is. Another common issue. This, so I'm going to pull something that a former coworker of mine used to say all the time, and I'm sure it was a quote that he pulled from somewhere else, but he used to always say, a fool with a tool is still a fool. Okay, let me run that back. A fool with a tool is still a fool. All right? And I took that to mean, don't let the new toy fool you into thinking that you don't have to do your job anymore. There are no such miracles. It may enhance and improve your work experience, but it likely won't move mountains. And I think that's the expectation that you should set with your team and anyone else involved. It's a tool, it's not Jesus. And speaking of fools, training, 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 training. Inadequate staff training and preparation is oftentimes a consideration that does not get enough attention when planning for a change, especially a change in technology. It's an expense both in time and money, and leaders will often try to avoid training activities in an attempt to save money or to avoid taking employees away from what may be critical work, but this is a big mistake. Why? Why? Because if you're spending all this time and money on a tool or a new toy or a suite or an application, whatever it is, and people don't know how to utilize it to its fullest, what was even the point? You wasted all that time, all that energy when people could have just been doing what they've been doing that probably wasn't even that broke to begin with. Teach the people how to use the thing. Knowledge is power. Empower your staff, empower your employees, strengthen your business, strengthen your team, okay? Stop playing. It's really just silly not to. Eat the cost of training up front. and not down the line when something breaks and you've run out of customer support hours. Lastly, security vulnerabilities. This is something that I want small business owners to really start to put at the forefront of their minds. Technology, especially when you're adopting something that is brand new, can absolutely expose your business to cybersecurity threats. And I don't say this to cause fear at all. I say this because it's really important to educate yourself and protect yourselves and your business data. And if you haven't done so already, I would highly recommend getting you, yourself, your team into some sort of cyber security awareness training. That way, in the event of some sort of a breach or attack, everyone within your organization knows how to respond appropriately. This is so critical when it comes to protection and safety of your data, people, and information. In fact, in a lot of industries, this type of training is fully required for anyone that has access to their network or has been allocated or assigned any sort of devices or hardware that are owned by that company. Anyway, that's all I've got. Thank you so much for your time today, and I really do hope that you find yourself back on the channel in the near future. In the meantime, take risks and have fun with your work. And please share this video if you feel like it might inspire someone that you know. And like this video if you enjoyed any part of it. Thanks again for being here.